And Professor Hill also wrote in her book that Believing, that solving this issue of gender violence is like boiling the ocean. It means it's just too big, yet she does have hope that we will make the needed changes. And of course, we wanted to continue this conversation. So with me now are my two colleagues, Evening's Angela Poe Russell and King 5's Roberta Romero. Thank you so much for coming to talk about this. Watching you both watch that interview and getting fired up is all the feelings I felt when I was speaking with Anita Hill. What are your thoughts and memories about that time, first of all?
Well, I can tell you, I was about 25 when it happened, and I remember having those same sort of embedded thoughts of, why is she speaking up? What is she doing? A little fear, actually a lot of fear for her when she sat in front of that Senate and was testifying all alone. And not understanding, in 2021, I can apply my sensibilities, but in 1991, no one was talking about this.
It was career suicide.
It was.
It was whatever. I remember that's the one word. I remember that's the first time I learned that term.
Yes.
Was in application to this.
I remember my own dad when I was telling him about a situation where I was working. And he basically said, okay, you could do this, but it's going to impact your career. I mean, that was my own, so you're steeped in this culture at that time and still continuing. And I was so, I felt like I was in Ending Gender Violence Church with Anita Hill right there. Because when she was talking about that girl's story, it resonated with me because on so many levels throughout my life, I have tried speaking up. I have tried speaking up to the institutions that should be the safe space to speak up and be believed. And I'll say it to Harborview Medical Center, dismissed at that level. Oh yeah, talking to you, Harborview, I'll just call you out, dismissed. At every level, it has to start. These are the spaces where you're supposed to be believed.
Where you're supposed to be safe.
I remember it was Bill Maher, I think during the Me Too movement, sometime, he made a statement that when he talked about this idea of believing, and he said, well, women should be taken seriously as opposed to believing, thinking about the justice system. And I said, okay, good point. But the other side of this is we need a bias towards believing. The court system is one thing, but when a person comes forward to you, we need a bias to believe, because right now it's the opposite. We immediately start with skepticism.
And that is the number one thing when I try to talk about, childhood victims of childhood sexual assault or victims of assault, is what's the most important thing you can just say to someone who has been a victim of assault? I believe you. So that is key. And it's so interesting that you say that, because I was wanting to share a story with both of you ladies about how, growing up watching this Anita Hill thing happen in front of all of us, and then being told all your life, you can do anything, women are equals. And then my first job at NBC Los Angeles, I had a producer who cajoled, who harassed, who threatened, and I went to my superiors, and nothing was done.
Which was incredibly brave at the time to go to your superiors on your first job.
In my beginning of my career. And actually, I got out of news because he told me he knew everyone and he would ruin my career. So I left and went to entertainment news. I came back. But isn't that crazy?
And I believe you, and I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
And it's very simple, right?
It's so simple. And I think that whole issue of not coming forward does come from that, because what's the point? It does, like you said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No one's listening.
Were you going to say something?
I appreciate that you said, I believe you. That was the first thing you said, and that touched me deeply. And I also just think that when we're talking about this depth and this change, that it's happening to us. That who knew Amity and to Angela and to myself that we're actually talking about it. I think that's sort of the beginning point, and then talking to our daughters about it.
Talking to our daughters.
I didn't tell my daughters this story because of the shame involved. And I talked to my daughters last night, and they were telling me about their own story, almost identical to that young woman. In middle school, boys would knock the binders down to hit girls' chests. And this happened here in Seattle, and the young girl went and told the female principal and the female vice principal, and they suspended the girl because she was part of she was involved in it.
Unreal. Was this
so? What, in 2010?
2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is obviously a triggering conversation for all of us. And I know we want to get to this idea of what can we do.
Yes.
And I do want to share is it okay to share the quick story?
Absolutely.
Okay, so at my daughter's school, they've actually started a pilot program to address gender violence.
Wow.
And I was in a meeting yesterday where they said so often we'll mention it once in a wellness class, And then as they navigate their teen years, there's no other discussion about it. So they're raising this idea of, is this maybe an ongoing discussion that is just part of what we talk about when we're in school?
And I think it's critical that our boys are in those classes.
Yes.
I was just going
I
to
have
say,
a son.
me too.
And he needs to learn this as well, and they're also victims of gender violence as well.
Yes. Yep.
But I really want all of us to learn it, that this isn't a girl-boy thing.
Yeah.
Gender. And she was specific. Anita Hill was specific about that.
Yeah.
That it's gender violence.
And she, looking back from the 10,000-foot view, she even says, when I was younger, I was more patient. She's run out of patience. And there is that. You know, that was going to be my last question to you, is this on the next generation? And I'm so happy to hear. I'm so glad you shared that story. Other schools should face that model as well, because it's so important. Ladies, thank you so much for taking the time. Any final thoughts?
I just have a question.
Tell me. I can't wait.
We talk about where it starts, right?
Yeah.
And I think about our culture, I mean, steeped in this culture. And this word that we're using, the B word, right? And I hear it come from men, not just women, but from men. Do we have a male equivalent? Is there anything that that would be the equivalent? I'm just wondering because
Well, I can't say it on TV, but
no, I'm making the point
it's true,
that
yeah.
I don't want to sound like the old-fashioned person. I'm bringing up this issue to say we're in this culture where it just feels like we're swimming in it.
Yeah.
And we need to look at where it starts and what we're surrounding ourselves by.
We do.
I think about our daughters. And I think that we're being able to break the cycle because now we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And thanks
That's a
to
good
Anita
first
Hill,
step.
who is, you know, leading the way. 30 years later.
30 years later. And it
Boiling
takes-
that ocean.
Boiling that ocean.
Let's go.
Thank you so much,
you.
ladies. Oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness, I'm so glad I talked to you.